So, in today's episode, we've been talking about the Winstons and the song Amen, Brother, that features the very famous Amen break. And we're fortunate here to have Richard Spencer from the Winstons here on the line. How are you today, Richard?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So it's been a very interesting journey with this Amen Brother slash Amen Break. You were part of the band in 1969 when they recorded this single, correct?
Exactly.
And what were your memories around that session?
Well, we needed a flip side for what was the A side, "Color Him Father," that I wrote, and I had an instrumental that I had kind of shared with the group, and that was the only other pieces we had that was significantly, you could call original, although it was a compilation of some stuff that we had, some stuff out there. And the break part came by because we didn't have enough of the song. It was kind of short. And so I had worked with some artists in Chicago at one time, and this particular part of this drum beat had become part of some stuff we had done, and I remembered it. And so I said, well, why don't we just put this drum beat in? And I explained it and talked the drummer through it. And that's basically how it happened. But it basically was a throwaway piece. I happened to have had the piece in mind. I knew exactly how to describe exactly what I wanted Greg to play. And, he kind of hesitated initially because he didn't particularly care for that particular piece. But we were running short on time in the studio. We were trying to get a B-side. So it was just kind of thrown together. It wasn't that much thought that went into it because we had played Amen Brother as an instrumental in dance clubs, and so when Greg came with the group, and then I kind of shared that with him, and that's basically how it kind of came about. It was really not a lot of thought went into it. Back in the day, all of us rhythm and blues musicians, and everything basically was by ear. We didn't read stuff, and we passed stuff through either playing it for the person, or we had little tones and things, we're going to do a Scooby-Doo or a skip, had ways of communicating ideas. And so we took about 10 minutes, I guess, put it down and didn't think about it anymore.
How did you first get involved with Metro Media Records?
Well, when we did Color Him Father, which was the A side, we were in Clearwater, Florida. We didn't have any kind of representation or anything. And the club owner where we were working decided, hey, I want to be you guys' manager. So back in those days, bar bands, everybody was dreaming about having an original. Well, I actually wrote Color Him Father and came to rehearsal, and we recorded it. So they sent it out, the new manager, I guess, to show his new management skills. He sent it to a friend of his in Atlanta. I think the guy was named Anyway, he had a booking agency in Atlanta, and he sent it out to some companies, I understand. And nobody really was interested in it, because it was, it wasn't a danceable song, blah, blah, blah. Metro Media, as I understand, was just getting into the record business. They were a big magazine and communication and television stuff up in New York. And so they decided they were going to do 45 records. And what they were going to do, I think the blueprint was to use like only TV artists. So they had, I don't know, you're too young to remember people like the Gold Diggers. They had a show on TV, and they got this guy, a couple other guys, and little boy Mark Copage from the TV show Julia. They were just going to use, and so they heard the song. Apparently, they didn't have a lot of equipment, material. So they gave it a shot. I understand they printed up about 1,000 copies of it, and basically it rode around in the trunk of disc jockeys, because it was considered a black song. This was still during the days of race music in 1969 in this country. And so it didn't receive any kind of publicity. They just printed these copies up and So about a month or so later, I understand someone played it somewhere on some radio station. The guy had run out of stuff to play, found it in the trash can or something. And it became a hit. People liked it. And so the Amen break side, the Amen Brother thing, basically, I said, was a throwaway instrumental. And Metro Media, that was one of the few hits that they had, so it became a big hit for them.
So Color Him Father started you off on a slightly different journey, which ended in a Grammy.
Yeah, I got the Grammy Award for writing, composition, rhythm and blues composition of the year, 1969. Yeah.
You still have that award with you?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So by the 70s, the band had started to run a bit out of energy. You disbanded it in, I want to say, 71. Is that right?
Late 60, well, no, actually the group broke up in late 16, right after, not long after the record came out.
You won a Grammy and said goodbye.
Yeah, but, well, yeah, I don't know, man. I didn't really understand, but anyway, right after the record came out, the guys became a little antsy. Everybody wanted to do different things, and basically we were just fucking scared of success. We were just guys who were just bar bands, and all of a sudden you got a hit record, and we didn't know, none of us knew anything about the business and stuff. And I think we basically just responded based on our fear of the success of the record. So we just started arguing about shit. The number one record in the country, everybody dissatisfied. And they broke up. I mean, it was like by the early 1970s, the Winstons, with the original group, no longer existed. So I dabbled around in the business for about a year, and it was just impossible to do because my whole attachment to the music business at that time was with those guys, And when you got to start putting together bands every other weekend and shit, so I just left and went back to university,
So you went. So the band split up. You went back to university and started living a civilian life. I'll say.
Exactly.
And then at some point you start to get word of this Amen Brother has been rediscovered. When was that? Yeah,
1994. I had just been out of the business. First of all, I didn't know anything about royalties and copyright. I'm surprised that I even had a copyright on the song because I just wasn't paying that much attention to the stuff. But anyway, around 1994, I was driving a bus in Washington, D.C., and I had just entered a doctoral program at Howard University. And one day I get a phone call, and it was a group record company out of the UK. I think it was called Strut Records or something. So anyway, this guy was questioning me about the Amen break, and he wanted to know how he could get the master. And I said, well, I don't really know, man. I haven't, I'm not in the business. And he said, well, hey, man, do you know the song is, that break is the most famous, blah, blah. Yeah, great. I just didn't pay it much attention. I hadn't been getting any royalties from my producer for almost 20 years. I didn't even know I had any royalties coming for any reason. As I said, I just walked away from the business. And so that was in like 94. And over between the next 5, 6, 7 years, by the time I retired from Metro Center, finished the doctoral program, and moved back home down in North Carolina, I had a computer and stuff, and I started doing research. And that's when I found out how big this thing was. It was almost like a religion in the UK. And I'm saying, oh, boy, wow, since 1978, I mean, it was on like 1,600 sampling groups and stuff. I didn't receive a dime for this, So I began to inquire, and then, of course, when black folks have owed millions of dollars all of a sudden, it's, well, you don't, 10 years, you can't sue, statute of limitation. So all of that money in NWA and all of the groups that used it between 1978 and up to even to the present, I just didn't get paid. And I don't know whether the producer, my publisher, was being paid. A lying asshole he wouldn't, I didn't know anything about it. It's possible he was getting, issuing licenses all of that time, which would mean he was making an asshole full of money. But I could never get into the money. And I mean, it's my piece. It's my copyrighted piece. It's mine. But as we've seen with the Obama presidency, I mean, when black folks get in those positions, shit changes. The rules change. Oh, unemployment is that doesn't matter. So, here I am down here, just a working man, got a son, and everybody's making money off except me. And I just wasn't able to poor people can't afford big time law firms, and all of that shit, So they know they have you. They call and give like they're interested. They want to see if you dead or you're drunk or you're some asshole somewhere because you're gonna get fucked. And so I just never got paid, man. And there was nothing I can do about it. My producer, the NWA, just came straight out of Compton, just came out as a movie. And the entire basis from what I've read, of the NWA album came out was that break was a very, very big part of Ice Cube's success with that. And I'm sure it was in the movie.
I think it was in the movie trailers, and that's the song that opens the whole album.
I can't get a dime for that. I called the publisher. And he was, well, I don't know. Listen, I'm taking cancer treatment. The fucker sitting down there making an asshole of money. But there's nothing I can do about it, bro. I don't, first of all, I'm 74 years old. My biggest thing has been to raise my son by myself. He just graduated from university. I left the music business. I taught school for 8 years. I'm retired now from 2 positions. I've been very busy over the last 40 years, identifying myself and redefining myself. But I just really got shitted on it, man. Even now, when I found out about this wine, somebody sent me an email the other day. I won't get a penny for that. It's just because I'm a black man. They don't have to pay me.
So let's talk about that real quick.
Sure.
Now, this Amen break, it's all over the place. This Amen break is worldwide. It's part of so many artists' repertoire. Not just NWA, but we're talking David Bowie. We're talking
1,600 group.
How many?
Right, 1,600.
1,600.
You can look it up. Yeah, since 1978, it's been used on 1,600 and 1,600 recordings.
And
everybody. I even had the list. You can go online and say groups that use the Amen break. It'll give you a whole list of. But all of that. I mean, during the time from 1978. I mean, I was in D.C. struggling, man. I'm driving bus. I'm making $7 an hour. I'm starting all over. I'm in undergraduate school. And it would have been great, be part of my legacy. It's my product. I own it. Why would I not be paid for it? Because, the whole issue of black music in this country, the writers, these young people today, they kind of get paid for it because they own the shit. But when I came through, man, we didn't get shit out of it. You get a Cadillac and date a white girl and the record go bad and your ass is back in the streets. They even had some situations like in the 50s, like when Frank and Lyman and those came by. If you look on who wrote it, there's always some name that doesn't look like, because the presidents of the company and stuff would write themselves into the copyrights. And because they knew where the money was. It's in long-term, ownership of the piece. So I got caught up in that, man. And there was really nothing I could do about it. I just had to accept the fact I feel flattered. An idea of mine was part of that whole hip-hop era, because there are some writers who said that almost the basic of hip-hop in this country was that break. Mm-hmm. And over in the UK, they talk about something called drum and bass, and some racist term like jungle music. But there was a guy named Nate Harrison did a video on it, and I understand some people were doing doctoral dissertations. They were even selling, they called it Amen, and it became like just a big time cultural thing. But I haven't, last year some young man and young people over in the UK did a GoFundMe thing. It was very kind of them, very sweet. They gave me about $24,000, and it was just donations and stuff, and it was nice. It was a nice gesture. I thought it was very. But in the UK, man, that song is almost like that break is like a religion. Yep. And but I got nothing out of it. Really, seriously, man, not one fucking thing. And now I see I'm going to get screwed again because somebody's going to sell hundreds of thousands of bottles of wine. I'm not going to get a dime out of it. Watch.
Richard was sharing a little bit earlier. He just got an email about a wine out of Australia that's called Amen Break. So now they're even using the terminology. The terminology is not just music anymore. It's really kind of seeped into the cultural sphere.
Culture.
Now, what's interesting, though, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Richard, but in the examples you were using a little bit ago where some record executive or some producer or some president of a record company wrote themselves into the copyright of an artist like Frankie Lyman or whoever, you actually, it's your name on the record here.
Yeah,
you
I'm actually copyright on it. And I'm surprised because I tell you the truth, it's amazing because I never forget that day when we were in Florida. We came back in D.C. The record was not big then. The guitar player said, "You got to get it copyrighted." And so I was going to have the lead sheet made and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And he said, "Oh, I know how to do it." So anyway, he's the one who filed the copyrights on both pieces. And at the time, my wife and I were breaking up. I really was not paying that much attention to anything other than the fact I was just losing my wife. I think the scary thing to me is that it's very possible that I could have just signed the song away. It was 25 years old. I didn't know shit about stuff like that. I'm just happy to be out there playing rhythm and blues,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a purist, I'm a horn player, man. I'm not sitting around trying to figure out how I'm going to fuck people out of their royalties. I just got robbed, man, just big time. But that's not unusual for black artists during my period.
Mm.
But my point is that, we are the people who were creating the music out of the West that everybody else took and made money off of, and we sat around and patted ourselves on the back as we went back into the slums and the ghettos and tried to get jobs. And a lot of the guys, as a matter of fact, I went to a funeral yesterday, a memorial, a young organ player, play his ass off, played with Hank Ballard in the midnight. He died penniless down in Ocala, Florida. He had about 7 strokes. These guys don't have health care and shit. And it was sad. I had to take up money to. I remember Roy Hamilton, big time star, McFadder, all those guys of those days, man. Most time, Jackie Wilson. They have to take up money to bury these people because we didn't get no money out of it. The money went to other folks.
Mm.
And they sit on they own the masters, they own the copyrights, they own everything. So
So now that you are very, I guess, aware of the popularity of Amen Break, I'm imagining when you hear it in popular music, you could spot it right away.
Oh yeah, it's in Futurama. I've heard it in the TV show Futurama. It was in Yamaha commercials. A Jeep commercial. It wasn't just used in hip hop and stuff, But I over these last 6 or 7 years, I have been paying much attention and listening and shit, But yeah, they change it around, change this tempo and stuff like that. But whether I recognize it or not, it's there, and people are using it and making money off of it. And one guy over in the UK had put it in as if it was his song. So, he originated it and was getting paid for it, So what you gonna do, man?
So even to this day, people are using it and they don't seek permission.
Yeah.
And you don't get any payment for it.
No, I don't. Dime. I don't get a fucking dime.
And
that does not mean that they're not getting permission from my producer. He's down in Atlanta, I don't even know, not producer, the publisher. A guy named Johnny B. Moses. And like I say, from 1972 up until 1992, when I finally reestablished contact with these people, this is when I was just going into the doctoral program, I never got one dime. So all of the time when the song was at their peak, he got all that money. And when he sent me a check in 1992 when I reestablished contact with him, for $1.75. My girlfriend at the time kept the check. It was sad, man. It's just literally sad. Now I could have been living over in the project with no teeth and a drunk. And the young man actually played the song. He died back in the day. Those guys, heartbroken. And we had the #1 song in the country, and we didn't even have work because we were an interracial band. Metro Media wouldn't even put our picture on the album because the Southern distributors, this is 1969 now. This is 1 year after Dr. King was killed. Lester Maddox has become the governor of Georgia on a racist platform. And down south, where a lot of the records sell, the distributors down there would not, they had told Metro Media, from what I heard, that they would not distribute the record if it had an interracial, because we were 3 whites and 3 blacks, so because it would look like they were promoting integration. And so we had all that shit to deal with.
G.C. Coleman, he was the drummer on the session.
Right.
And he died, I think, in 96? Right?
Something like that, yeah.
Was he aware toward the end of his life of the popularity of that drum break?
I don't know, but I doubt it. I'm not sure now, because like I hadn't seen Gregory since the group broke up in '69. He stayed down around Atlanta in that area, and those guys everybody went their different way. But I don't know. But I did hear that he passed, and I was surprised. I didn't hear that till years after he was dead. And then the guitar player died, the alto player died, the bass player died. So broken hearts, I guess. I don't know. Pick up bad habits.
So with the song Amen, Brother, or Color Him Father, do you still have the master tapes or copies of the record?
No, I have copies of the record, but Metro Media owns the masters. And when I found out that the guy from that Skunk record or whatever the fuck it was, that called me, he was the one who told me. He said, well, I've been trying, I need for you to call. He had this lawyer's name up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, who was overseeing Metro Media's catalog, And so I called the guy. This was like in 96. I called him. He said, well, I don't know where the masters and stuff are. He said, I'm a lawyer. I just oversee their account. I don't know anything about the records. I don't even know where that stuff is. And basically, that was basically what he said. In other words, what you going to do about it? And but Metro Media owned the masters. And that was another thing that was entirely different for us back in those days, is because you didn't own your own masters. They kept them. Even though they made their money back from the sales and blah, blah, blah. For some reason, I thought they paid them off. I thought that when you got your royalties, they paid themselves back for whatever they had invested in you, because they took a large part of the money that we made. Because we were getting like 3 cents a record, in the record. So, I mean, a million seller, we got like $30,000, because the records are based on 28 cents per unit, blah, blah, blah. But they own it. They own the masters to it. I don't have any idea where it is. I don't have the money and stuff to be using lawyers and things trying to find it, because it would cost me probably $500,000 to find it. And poor people don't have that kind of money. Now, if I was a Mick Jagger or somebody, they wouldn't even, they just give me $5 or $6 million and write it up in one of the big magazines and be proud of it. It wouldn't even be in a contest. But racism is a motherfucker, man.
I tend to think that this case isn't a closed case. You are a person who owns the copyright. Right. You have that property, and there are a lot of people out there who have misused your property. So right. I think it's, at this point, I don't think it's completely insalvageable. If you are able to find a lawyer who would, an attorney, a firm who would take this on as a percentage, rather than
I have tried that. Yeah. I have tried that, bro. You know what they do? The lawyers will make a deal with the company, and they'll get paid, and then they just tell you, there's no need for them to do that. I mean, I'm just a brother, and I mean this whole disparity in income shit, that's just for real. They don't give a damn if I don't get the money. They'll say, well, we'll look into it, and 2 days later, it's over. So you're right. All of the things that you said, I know that. Everybody, yeah, it's your product. People are using, they're supposed to pay you. Yeah, they're supposed to pay you if you're a white person, but they're not going to pay me. because they don't have to pay me. I mean, what can I do about it? I can't afford a lawyer that would take on that kind of case. I was surprised Sly Stone. It was so obvious. Sly had a whole lot of music out of it. Them folks had made millions off, and then it was undeniable. But you just can't. You can't. I don't have the. I don't have the juice. I don't have the skin tone. I don't have the history of having the ability to affect change in my life through the legal system. So they're not worried about me. I mean, what the fuck I'm gonna do? So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. What you proposition is your stuff. You own it. You got the copyright on it. You can go to the Library of Congress and look it up. And how could anyone use your stuff and not pay you? Well, they couldn't use your stuff without paying you. But they can do that to me, and they can do it to any other black person. And all of these brothers I knew, I was sitting at that funeral yesterday, and it was just going through my mind. All these, when I was at North Carolina A&T in 1962, and all of those guys, we played behind Chuck Jackson, Etta James. I mean, these guys play their asses off, professional. All of them are dead. Most of them died from heartbreak. Just something you love is in you, and you look around, and everybody's prospering from it, but you. And there's really nothing you can do about it. We've seen some change with these younger people. They own their own shit and stuff, and that's cool. But they're standing on our shoulders because we got nothing out of it. Like I say, you have a hit record. They wouldn't put a whole lot of publicity in because basically they just push it on the black radio station. Color Him Father kind of went what they used to call top 100. They went up to like number 4 on the Billboard top 100, which means white folks are listening to it too. But no, you don't have any recourse, bro. That's just we black guys. When I had a heart attack, man, back when I was at Howard, I had this young cardiologist, man, over at Georgetown Hospital, and he was telling me black men were dying from heart attacks, broken hearts. He said, you go through your life 50, 60 years, you're walking by people and they lock the car doors, you follow the right. He said, all those little things cause a little internal hurt. And then you have to say to yourself, it's okay, it's all right if I'm being, watched. Oh, I understand. They say, And he said, after a while, your heart just is broken because you're not accepted as a person. You're accepted as something that white folks can use an excuse for their fears and insecurities and shit. And we see that now in this country with the Trump phenomenon. Those people they just hate Obama. They'd rather blow this damn country up to let his legacy stand as probably one of the most effective men ever been in the White House. This guy took an economy that was fucked over and turned it around from 11% unemployment to now we're down like 4.8. But they were like, oh, we gotta kill him. And then when I was a little boy growing up, if you were a black person in a small town, you started a business that was doing well, stuff, they come burn your business now. Run your family out of town. They could not allow themselves to know of a black man who was successful in anything. So, I'm not, it's something we're used to. We just all, I don't give a fuck you're an NBA ball player or football. I was watching when the Panthers' young brother, he was quarterback of Cam Newton, and after they lost the Super Bowl, he was just walking off the field, and he didn't want to do anything. And Cam Newton got an attitude, blah, blah, blah. Then somebody on this news ran a thing of Peyton Manning after they lost, and he was just actually pushing reporters and things. They didn't say shit. Boy, Peyton really didn't feel like no interviews, and we understand he just lost. Ha ha ha! He's such a competitor.
Richard, well, I'm hoping at some point we can those feelings, those emotions, and those those attitudes are far enough in the rearview mirror that we don't have to put up with stuff like that anymore because it doesn't sound.
How old
like
are you?
it.
How old are you?
46.
Well, you probably will see it. Yeah, it's possible. But we'll see.
I was born about 4 months before Color Him Father was released.
Yeah. Well, let's see if Donald Trump and the people who are supporting him, who basically want to disenfranchise black people, let's see if the anti-immigrant movement in Europe amongst these poor white folks who that fucked up their lives. Now they don't, they just want to blame other people. Let's see how these two movements go on, and we'll be able to tell how the future is going to be. Because we got to hear a guy running here in America, man. His whole thing is like anti-black, anti-gay, anti-everything other than poor white men. And so we'll see. I do hope. But my son, I got a son, 25, just graduated from university. I mean, all of his friends and things, we was at a predominantly white university. I mean, you don't hear that stuff among the young people. And I was just around a lot of them over the last 5 or 6 years. Just genuinely nice kids who just don't have that shit in them.
That gives you hope, yeah.
Yeah, it does. It really does, man. And I know, it was so bad. It just pissed me off because apparently when Obama ran, a lot of the college kids here white kids voted for Obama. You know what these motherfuckers did? They changed the rules so when you vote now, you have to go home and vote because they figure if these white kids go home around their parents, they'll vote the way their parents were, which is basically conservative, Republican, anti-liberal stuff. So they're always coming up with tricks to try to. Right now we're being kind of like disenfranchised. You got to you got to have all kind of ID to vote. And when my mom and them was coming along, you go to vote, they'd ask you to recite the Soviet Constitution. You couldn't do it. Oh, you're dumb, nigga. You shouldn't. You have to vote. They had all kind of ways to keep you on 2 black cats. That was a joke. But I'm hoping that you young people, and it was a lot of hope. I felt a lot of love for those young people over in Europe who had that thing for me last year. They didn't have to do that. But so I do have hope for you younger people, but my generation, that we're the last, I hope, of this terrible demonic, evil demon that fell out of heaven some fucking time, and it basically almost fucked this world up to the point it's almost dangerous to ride airplanes.
So let's end this on a good note. Make
it a C minor.
Richard, tell me a little bit about your musical history. You've played with some fantastic musicians and legends. Give me a little bit of info on that.
Well, I first of all, I started taking. My mama came to New York in 1945. I was 3 years old. I started taking piano lessons when I was 5. Okay. Grew up in the holiness churches, studied classical piano. By the time I graduated from high school, I played damn near every instrument and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I went off to college and stuff, and that's when I started playing behind acts. In 1962, there's a book called Give the Drummer Some. On page 39, you'll see I was a member of a group of a house band in Greensboro, famous El Rocco, and we would play behind, Otis Red. They would come there for breakfast. This was during the days of segregation, so after they would play Coliseum and stuff, and they would always come to this club where it's supposed to have the best food. But we got a chance to play behind Little Willie John, and because they'd all get up and sing and stuff, James Brown, as a matter of fact, my drummer, the drummer for the group that I was with, Maceo Parker's brother Melvin went with. That's James Brown hired him and Maceo from that club coming in. But I was Otis's band director. I played the Winstons were the backup band for Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions for a while, just before Color and Father came out. As a matter of fact, I always give Curtis Mayfield credit for inspiring me to write. Everybody I played behind, we used to play the Apollo Theater as a member of the house orchestra. So all of the acts that came through there, I never played with Jimi Hendrix. I knew him. I knew him when he stopped being a black American, became an Englishman.
Well, that tended to work out better for him, I guess.
Yeah, it did, man. We teased the shit out of him because he was like playing with just playing with the Isley Brothers, get to play with Wilson Pickett. So we'd be up around the Apollo Theater. So guys, hey man, you heard about Jimmy? He said, no man. Said he put a headband on and turned his guitar upside down. He's downtown in the village. That motherfucker making bank. And then he got an English accent because of what he was doing, man. I mean, the kissing his ass with the guitar and all. Every back guitar player in America was doing that. But I was in the music business, man, and I was reliable. I was fairly decent horn player. I was dependable, so I got a lot of calls. I was with Otis up until, again, my militancy, because I also was very active in the civil rights movement when I was in university. But I was playing with Otis. We were playing a place called the Cheshire Cat in Atlanta. And not only was I his band director, but I also did the MC. You know, it was kind of self-contained show. And so I was bringing the next group on or something, and someone slipped me a note and said, the governor and his entourage are here, and they want you to introduce them. And that was Lester Maddox, the governor, the racist governor of Georgia. And I cussed that motherfucker out from the stage. Me and Otis got in a fight that I lost, and I quit the band. Well, it comes to find out that my quitting the band saved my life, because it was another 7-8 months that he was killed in that plane crash.
So let me ask you, okay, let me just make sure I understand this. So you got a request to introduce Lester Maddox from the stage. Otis was okay with it, but you weren't.
Yeah, Otis was okay. Otis was one of the good old boys in Georgia. You know, he wasn't. I don't mean to, pass him kind of this, but he come out of that real deep down in Macon, Georgia, with him basically. Those guys were basically down there was treated like slaves, and he had this white manager, and they basically controlled him, and but. It was just very upsetting to him, because it upset white people around him, who all were apparently Lester Maddox supporters. But I mean, that would have been just like a Jewish person back in 1945, and Hitler come in place. He probably would have had to do it, but you wouldn't have done it without some, just vinegar in it. But I just cussed him out, him and his wife, his horse.
That must have been fun.
Just enough drink. I felt bad about it, to tell you the truth. I just had enough drink in me to do it. But when I came upstairs, man, Otis was just absolutely, he just was, man, what are you doing? These white guys are standing around, with their hands on their guns and shit, the people who were managing. And I guess he pushed me. And Otis is like about 6'2", look like LeBron James, But we got in a fight, man. Luckily, he didn't kill me, wasn't it? But it saved my life. Principle, I say. And that's at least what I tell myself. But, I played with him. Then I met basically an entirely different type of guy when we played behind Curtis Mayfield and Impression. I thought he was probably one of the most intelligent and probably one of the most down-to-earth and politically conscious guys I'd ever met. And, I was around all them brothers, man, cause like I said, I was a pretty good side man, and a lot of people would hire me no more than 2 or 3 days, because I was dependable and I could be there. And
then from doing all those gigs, then you started putting your own thing together, which became the Winstons?
Exactly. Well, yeah, the Winstons, in Washington, D.C., we still had like white clubs and black clubs, but there were some white guys who played, they had black guys in their bands. So when I came off the road with Otis, now when I was with Otis, a guy named Quincy Madison, the guitar player who was with the Winstons, was with us. Greg came with Otis later after I left. I think he was with him when they went out to San Francisco. So when I came home, it wasn't long after that, they came home. And they start playing downtown in this white group, guy called Sonny Gordon 5. And his group broke up, and he stepped out there and hired 2 black guys. And so then, long after that, the horn player quit. And so Sonny's girlfriend and my wife were strippers in the same club. So he sent a message and asked me if I wanted a job, and the money was pretty good. I wasn't doing anything. And so then it was me, Quincy, and Greg in the Sonny Gordon 5, and then Ray stayed. The white singer we played a supper club down in North Carolina, right when Dr. King was murdered. And all the white folks, it was a hippie. They said they told Sonny they had to fire him, because the white people were eating, they didn't want to look at him. So then when we came back to D.C., I suggested that we get Phil, an organ player, because not only could he sing, but he played organ, and he was a pretty good organ player. And that's kind of how we got together. And we were a hell of a group, man. I mean, we were just the chemistry and everything was just perfect. Up until we became successful, and then we just disintegrated,
When you don't have anything to fight over, it's all good. But when all of a sudden something is there to fight over, then
when you're sharing a bucket of chicken and you got to slip in You rent 2 rooms in a motel somewhere way out, and y'all, man, we just loved it. You lay in your room and talk and eat and, had a big little white van and shit. We were making like $40 a piece a night, happy as larks. And but when the record came out, everybody started getting their hair fixed differently, and as it starts sectionalizing everybody, and so after about 6-7 months after the record was out, the group broke up.
That story's been told far too many times.
Yeah.
So, Richard, I really hope everything goes well, and I'm gonna formally ask you permission if I could play this Amen break on this podcast. Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
That'll be 5,262. No, I'm joking. No, man, play the shit out of it.
I'll send you a bottle of Amen break wine.
Oh Lord, I can sit around and feel good about being broke. Just send me a white girl too. No, I'm joking, man. But listen, I really appreciate you doing this, and I hope your podcast come out good for you.
So, Richard, it's obvious you're a creative guy. How have you been do you still play music, or what exactly do you do for your creativity these days?
Well, one of the things I did, I learned how, went away from all of the basic standard instruments and stuff, and I taught myself all of the digital stuff over the last 10, 15 years. So I went out and, I learned how to do that, but I also wrote and published 2 novels, and I became a Baptist minister. I formed a gospel group and we worked together for a while, but it was just a little too difficult to do because I'm a person about rehearsing all the time. And but I wrote 2 books. One of them is named The Molasses Tree, A Southern Love Story. You can get it on the website is lulu.com, and the other one is called The Air. My wife and I was married to an Episcopal priest, actually. My wife and I wrote that one together, and that's on that. Actually, you can get that on Yahoo. No, Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. So that's what I've been doing, man. Like I said, and I raised a boy by myself, and he's a pretty good boy. And I came back to Wadesboro, and there was a shortage of black male teachers here, and they talked me into. I taught honors psychology and economics and all this stuff for like 8 years when after I retired from the metro system. So I've been doing those things, man. Just raising a son. I wrote some books. I taught school, and I smoke a lot of reefer and watch television and laugh at shit that ain't funny.
Well, I'll make sure to include links to the books and information on our website with this article, with this podcast. And Richard, it sounds like you've really lived a full and creative and honorable life. So
I have.
Best of luck, from this point forward. And I'm sure your boy's going to grow up and do some great things. And hopefully one day we'll be able to say that justice for the whole Amen break will have been served.
See how successful I have been with him. Them motherfuckers going to the Preakness weekend. It's a big race here, horse race.
Oh.
He's going to the Preakness. So I've done a pretty good job with my little middle class. I love you, man. Listen, thanks a lot, and I hope this thing is a very successful thing. Call me anytime, okay?
Okay. Thank you so much, Richard. Cheers, mate.
Okay, baby. Bye-bye. All right, bye-bye.